Good morning, Opening Pathways viewers. It's Tom Lenoble. It's good to see you again. I have Simon Mont with me today, who is the founder of Harmonize Consulting. What a great name. Simon, welcome to Opening Pathways.
Thanks so much, Tom. I'm looking forward to chatting.
Yes, me too. What I'd love for you to share with our viewers is a little bit about Harmonize Consulting, anything else you might want them to know. But in that, I'd love for you to let us know what sparked your idea to start it.
I was in law school and was in law school because I wanted to do anti-mass incarceration and anti-school to prison pipeline work. And when I got to law school, I noticed that there was not as much room for creative solutions as I wanted there to be. And that a lot of the experience of being in law school was taking my impulse to make a big systemic change in the world and really focusing it into existing channels. And some of those existing channels I was not a big fan of. And I started looking for groups that were really creating new worlds. And I found myself in kind of like a movement lawyering space, working with grassroots organizations and community organizers. And a lot of us were hitting the same puzzle, which was that as we started to try to build new worlds, we were creating the underlying dynamics of the very things we were trying to change and kind of tripping over ourselves in the process. And I noticed this big puzzle, really, which was that we had a bunch of issue area experts and tremendous visionaries with visions of the world I really wanted to stand behind. And being an expert in an issue area, whether it's, justice or food sovereignty or climate, it doesn't then make you an expert in being able to organize a bunch of people to be able to work collectively toward that task in a way that is aligned with your vision. That's a whole nother skill set. And when I was started working on that, the decade ago at this point, I noticed that we were all just kind of like underdeveloped in that. So I became obsessed with the puzzle of how do we really work together in a way that's really effective, that's also aligned with our values and our visions.
Wonderful. So I'm curious, how have you changed? What has changed about Simon since you started on this venture?
So much. It's been a while. I think one of the big changes is that when I began the work, I had a very particular ideology about what it meant to organize in alignment with values in a way that was effective. And it was really about inclusivity. It was really about non-hierarchy. It was really about a critique of existing systems and the power dynamics and their impacts. And even though I didn't realize that at the time, it was a bit of a one size fits all critique. It was a like, oh, all of us need to have really sophisticated shared power structures, and all of us need to break down hierarchy, and all of us need to have really consensus based decision making. And that was kind of really came from where I really got schooled in political analysis, which is mostly on the left, on like a progressive and radical left. And they really have visions that I still align with of the way that I want to see the world. And as I got deeper and deeper into just the technical engineering puzzle that is getting humans to work together, I realized that some of those ideologies were not really well served. Really didn't really serve me well when it came to solving that puzzle. So I've developed like a much more nuanced understanding of that as a professional. And then also just like as an individual, it was a big moment of reflection because there was a moment where I was like, oh, I've been working for like 5 years presenting myself as an expert. And I just realized that I disagree with a lot of the things that I've been saying for the past 5 years. I've outlearned myself. And that was a big moment of soul searching for me. And then humility moving forward, realizing like, oh, hopefully I disagree in 5 years with the stuff I say now because I've learned more, but hopefully I'm able to still move in a way that's supportive for everyone's learning and
Yeah.
growth, including my
I
own.
love this evolution of learning. I hope it never stops for me.
Yeah.
Tell me this. You mentioned the values. What personal values have guided you from the start? And I guess more importantly, which ones have deepened as you've been on this mission?
The one that's been here from the beginning is seeking a truth worth aligning myself with. Like, I think you come into human experience and then you're faced with this choice of like, okay, how am I going to be here? How am I going to be a person? How am I going to relate? What are the impacts I'm going to try to have? And then that seemed like there was the first choices. Either I'm going to believe that there is some real moral truth that it's worth me interrogating and trying to align with, a moral or spiritual or cosmic truth that I'm going to try to be in service of, or I'm going to think that it's all subjective and we can just do what we want. We're creating whatever. And I picked the first one. Like, I think that there is something that is good that we can be in service of. There is something. And then the question of, okay, how do you discern that? How do you hear it in the world? How do I hear it amidst the many voices in my own mind and the different kinds of self-awareness practices and learning and reflection and connection and accountability and relationships that are required to keep me kind of finding that deep truth, as deep as I can find it in any moment. And it's got me to a place where now the quick way I remind myself of my like overarching values that I'm trying to align with is liberty and justice for all. Like,
Yes.
because I think that liberty is about our individual self-expression and exploration, and justice is about our relationships and impacts and interconnectedness. And then for all reminds me of like for all humans, regardless of background, identity, all those things, as well as the non-humans, the beings seen and unseen that we're sharing this earth with, and the earth itself as a being. Like, for what if there was liberty and justice for all of us? What if that was the truth? The moral truth that was guiding me is the
Yeah. Brings me to the word harmonize. So
look
I'm
at that.
curious, who who or what in your upbringing or role models did you have early on that influenced what you're doing today? I find that many people, somebody had a spark of something that put us on a path that may not have been the path they chose for us, but something that got in sort of seeded early on. What was that for you or who?
Really early on, my mom used to take me to Michael's arts and crafts store a lot. That was like our thing. And we would go in there without a plan and just look for what weird art and craft we were going to do that day,
Love it.
and then did it. And I don't know if she was doing this intentionally, but it really cultivated a sense of experimentation and empowerment for me. It's like, oh, let's try it. I don't know how to do that, but let's try it and see what happens, and then learn and keep going. And at the same time, my dad, his job works in international development. So he's seen a really broad range of the world, many, many countries. But anytime he goes to a country, he sees the halls of governance as well as the poor disabled folks out in the countryside. And he said to me at a pretty young age, he said, Simon, you're a fairly well off white male Jew in the United States in 1990s. Everything else in your life is rounding error. Like
Mm,
everything, no matter what you do here, it's not. There's people who are living a fundamentally different existence than you are, and
hmm
that is because of the structures and systems that are at play. And I think those two things, as well as my mom also worked in disability justice, and my brother has a disability, so I kind of watched how systems failed, and I kind of had this thing inside me from a young age of like, okay, I'm empowered and I'm responsible in some way, and there's a way we can do this well, and let me see if I can make a contribution. Those are some of the like real early,
Yeah,
early,
love
early.
this. So tell me this, we just entered a new year, or recently anyway. I'm having a hard time catching up with February already.
Yeah.
Where has life asked you to slow down lately, and what did you hear?
I just had a kid. I had my first kid. And
Congratulations.
thank you. And that's a real reframing experience. And to figure out how to live a life that's compatible with how I want to be with him and how I want him to be able to be in the world. And that really requires like taking a look at what's actually motivating me. And I'm trying to slow down with that a lot. And also just, yeah, trying to be in the field of genuine heart-centered connection with my family. It's asked me to slow down. I think the like continuing confrontation with the collapse of different societal structures and sense-making apparatuses. It's like we could speed up and be like, oh my gosh, let me find a solution. Go, 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 go. It's panic. And I think I'm humbled by how little I know about it. And it's really like got me in a spot of like, I know I'm gonna die. It's the only thing I know for sure is that I'm gonna die. And when I die, I know I want to be grateful for having lived. And
Hmm
I know that I want my son to also be grateful for living and not caught in a constant doing and be able to be in the blessing that is this world, and trying to place more of my awareness on that and a little less on this part of me that has been driving me for a long time, which is make a change, be a good person, save the world, whatever. Still have a little bit of that justice, a lot of that justice in me, but that's where I've been slowing down more.
Yeah, nothing like a little kid in the family to shift things, right?
Yeah.
I was sitting across from the table from my niece a few months ago in LA, and I was looking at her, and she said, "What are you looking at?" And I said, "Jenna, I don't understand. I was there in the room when you were born. I changed your first diaper, and you're now 33." And so she looked at me and said, "What I really don't understand is you got older and I didn't." Uh, but it was amazing to me how quickly that time happened. And, we're told that I think when we're younger, how fast time can go. And um, um, the older I get, I'm aware of that. And I hear young people saying how fast time is going. And I'm thinking to myself, if you think it's going fast, think what I'm thinking. So
Yeah.
it's a pretty amazing thing. Enjoy every moment of this time with your little son. Tell me
Thank you.
this, how has your relationship with risk changed as your responsibility with Harmonize and getting focused there changed and grown?
Hmm. I used to think that the biggest risk was like failing or being ostracized or excluded or yeah, failing, ostracized, excluded, or not achieving my potential or not making an impact. And now I think that the biggest risk is not being aligned with my truth and lying to myself.
Mm.
And each year that goes by, and each year I catch another thing that I've been doing that's been like lying to myself a little bit, or not really devoting myself to what my heart really calls me to. I see how big of an impact a small little bit of delusion causes me,
Mm.
steers me
Wow.
on a direction for years. And really kind of feeling the finiteness of life and being like, all right, I'm, best case scenario, more than a third of the way through this thing, probably closer to a half. Let me just be for real about who I am and what I want to be and how I want to live. And
Mm.
that's the biggest risk at this point.
Yeah, love this. So tell me this, how does Simon decide or know when to pivot versus push through with something?
Oh, this is a great question.
Right?
And it's a question I ask myself often and love to ask people like, what is it that we follow for real? How do I decide when to pivot and when to push through? In a life, in life or in like work project? What do you
You tell me. Sometimes they show up the same.
think about what my core intention was that got me there to begin with, and whether the form that I'm creating is still the thing that's the most aligned with that
Mhm.
intention, and whether it's important to follow through for the sake of following through. Like, for example, even with Harmonize right now, I've been doing this for more than a decade. And there have been a lot of times where I've been like, okay, I'm tired. Like, I am tired. And this is not exactly what I want the next chapter of my life to be focused on. And I felt very clear that I'm going to push through something. And I had to think, okay, like my core intention was to develop a certain body of work, engage a certain question, learn and teach about this thing. Have I completed it yet? And it's like, no, I haven't. I haven't completed it, and if I were to pivot without completing it, I would have this lingering sense of incompletion in my life, and it would erode my faith in myself to be able to complete the next big thing.
Hmm.
So like, okay, and that brought me into a season where I was like, all right, what exactly does completion look like? And I defined what completion looks like for me, and now I'm focused on that. Because I know that that will feel good because I still trust that deep intention. And then in thinking about the exact form of like, does it need to look like this or this or this or this? Those are all smaller intentions. Like they're smaller intentions that aren't the deepest thing that I don't need to follow those things all the way through. I think that's a little bit about it. And I also like think about the feedback that I'm getting from others in the world about whether others want me to follow through on the thing or and why they do and what part of me wants to meet their desire and if there's a tension between like I want to follow through and the world wants me to pivot, or I want to pivot and the world wants me to follow through. I take a moment to think about like which of these impulses feels stronger, which of these impulses feels truer. And if there's an impulse outside me that says do something different that I really find real and trustworthy, I'll question my own impulse a little bit more.
Mm.
That's a little bit, I guess, about how
I
I.
like it. I like it. I think Core Intentions would be a great name for a book.
Mhm.
So, whatever that means, had to say that. So tell me this, and I'm not talking about the time if a bear is chasing us and we feel fear, but how do you recognize when fear is bringing information and not a stop sign?
Fear is always bringing information. I mean, that's what fear is. Fear is the awareness of risk. And almost every time the thing that the risk that the fear makes me aware of is a real risk. It's just that the embodied experience of the fear can make me believe that the risk is more likely than it actually is, or that the risk coming true is more damaging than it really is. So if I'm afraid of something, I have to take a second. And the first thing is like, okay, so what if it happened? Most of the things that I'm afraid of, if it happened, I'd be fine. And if I don't think I would be fine, I don't feel like I could be with that reality, then I have to take a moment and think, okay, what are the odds for real that this is going to happen? And then usually after that, I have a little bit more of a
Yeah,
understanding of what's going on.
yeah, I like this. I've learned that for me, fear is typically an opportunity for growth. There's something that's waiting for me to either explore, learn, experience, but it's an opportunity that comes wrapped in something that used to rattle me a little bit, but not as much as it used to. Tell me
Yeah.
this, Simon. What impact are you most proud of? But I'm not interested in publicly or professionally. I'm more interested in personally. What impact are you most proud of personally?
Hmm. I haven't thought about that much. Most of the ideas of impacts are more in like the vocation
Yeah.
space.
Well, we can let you
There's
think about
yeah. There's two that are coming to mind. One was when my wife Joanna and I got married. We had like a weekend long experience filled with a lot of ritual, and we were really in deep conversation with each other about our relationships with spirit and with the cosmos and with our ancestry, our Jewish ancestry. And we had a Shabbat ceremony, so a prayer ceremony the day before that we led. And we used a prayer book, a Siddur that I had created based on some study that I had done. And we led it together. And afterward, people came up to us and said, I have not felt this connected to the
it.
divine in a long time. I didn't know that this is what Jewishness could look like. And that I'm very, very proud of like taking my own practice, bringing it into relationship with Joanna's practice, figuring out how to turn the inside of my soul out, and then creating an experience for others that reminded them of what's possible for them. That was really,
Yeah.
that's one of them.
Yeah. I think it's what, for me, one of the wonderful things about life is how we share things with each other, and out of them something blossoms that
Mhm.
becomes richer than we ever thought might happen. I love that answer. Tell me this. I actually have a post coming out about this word soon, boundary,
Uh-huh.
because we often think of boundaries as a barrier or a stopping point or something to hold something back. And there are a number of words, a number of definitions rather for the word bound. It could, you could be bounding towards something. It's kind of an interesting word, but I'm interested to know from you what boundary has become essential to your sustainability. What have you done in your life, whether it's work or just in general, that you know allows you to sustain yourself? Has there been one?
I have so much to say about boundaries.
I
I
love
love,
it.
I love boundaries, but I'll try to stay really in the pocket of your question.
Okay.
What is a boundary that's allowed me to sustain myself recently? Uh, Not internalizing nonsense.
Hmm.
So really, if something happens around me or to me that violates my sense of integrity to myself, really being willing to express it outward. And if I choose that expressing it outward is not appropriate given the circumstance for some reason, at least writing it down or expressing it privately in some way where I can continue to maintain my own sense of integrity has been really, really important. And I think another one has been focusing with kind of obnoxious discipline on what is within my like sphere of agency. Like I'm a fairly politically engaged person, fairly knowledgeable about systems and change and policy and all that. but I will almost never have a conversation about it with anyone unless we are talking about what we're going to do about it.
Ah, I like
Unless
that.
we're talking about this matters. So that means we have to start moving in this particular way. I find that that really brings all of my focus into actually creativity as opposed to talking. And I'll have like the abstract conversations and I'll read books and all that stuff to be knowledgeable and informed, but I have a pretty low tolerance for talking about an issue if we're not trying to make sense of it so that we can take action. If I'm not gonna make sense of it so that it can impact my life and that I can take action, then all I'm really doing is performing. So I'd rather just direct my energy elsewhere.
I like this. Yes. Tell me this. What does renewal look like for you beyond the what we normally think of rest or time off? How does Simon renew himself?
I experience like a deep well of sacred resource that's available to me and to any person at any time. So if we choose to access it and surrender to receiving it, and it humbles us and it resets us. And to be renewed is to be back with that. And there's a many different ways to do it, but it is more than just relaxation and resetting my body and nervous system to have more energy to do whatever. It's getting
Hmm.
totally reset in my whole orientation of what is real and what is important via a momentary contact with that which gives me life for real.
Like it. Hmm. So I'm interested, what at this stage of your life does legacy mean to you?
Less and less every day. Um, I used to be very concerned with it. Like, I want to write a book that will be preserved for generations. I want to have an impact so that people know. Like, I used to be way more. And I think that this, in a very millennial way, right? The stuff that is happening in the world really, really changes that for me. Because I think in the same way that meditating on my own death makes me realize that I want to be grateful for today, meditating on the collapse of the world and at some point is inevitable, right? That trying to live in the present for an imagined future that I'm not even going to be present for. I'm not sure that's how I want to live. So I'm a little bit less thinking about legacy and a little more thinking about presence. And to the extent that I'm thinking about legacy, I'd like to have there be more possibilities for sacredness and for alignment and for truth and for liberty and for justice. I'd like there to be more possibilities for it for people because I live the life that I live.
Hmm.
And
Legacy is, oh, go ahead, sorry.
yeah, and boy, would it be fun if I was able to do that in a way where I got the reflection from other people that that was the case. That would feel very, very fulfilling also.
Yeah, I like this. Legacy changed for me quite a bit. I can remember a time when I was really like, this doesn't fit. It's like I don't need that in my life. And Um, it went from there to even kind of avoiding, maybe even avoiding the thought of it because it came wrapped in some expectation or connotation that didn't feel like it fit. And today that shifted for me in that a lot of the work I do through my philanthropy and other stuff, that it's not about me. I want the legacy to be more about the work and how it might continue on without me, that I influenced it in some way. I can't remember whose quote it is, which is unfair of me to use it, but I like to think about that I'm planting trees that I'll never see the shade of, and that
Mhm.
what I'm doing isn't about my legacy as much as the legacy of what those things are and how they might shape or help in the future. It's a great
Yeah,
conversation. I love asking it because I find so many different meanings of it that's really helps us think about what it means to us, like other things in life. So tell me this. I want to know more about Harmonize Consulting. I'd love for you to tell us what your vision is of what's to come, maybe a little about what you'd like us to know. And that's what I'd like.
yeah. So for more than 10 years, we've worked with 500 organizations generally, and then maybe another 75 and really deep, extended processes, all confronting the question of how are we going to work together to create the worlds that we envision. And confronting that question in like every dimension that we were present to when it was relevant. So lots of developing strategy, creating organizational structures, and then you can't do that for long before you realize there's a lot of conflict, and we need to be able to be with conflict. We need to be self-aware. We need to be able to regulate our nervous systems. We need to do everything from like collaborating involves everything from like the deepest and most intimate parts of ourselves to the most like technical agreements and structures we use outside of ourselves. And then to really do it in a way that's like deeply aligned and deeply in harmony with the world, and the like goodness that we're able to pursue as humans is a really complex process. So how do you figure out how to do that? So we've been doing that for a long time, and in a lot of intimacy with organizations. A lot of, we did a lot of reproductive justice work and birth justice work, a lot of environmental justice work, a lot of like base building, power building, then did work in like big decentralized movements. I've been in it for a long time and learned a lot. Learned a lot. And now we're in a period of synthesizing that learning to be able to make it more accessible to more people. So
Mhm.
before, only thing we really did was consulting gigs, consulting and coaching. And now we're building public trainings and replicable packages so that people can get access to it cheaper and easier. And then we'll be able to start training other facilitators to be able to do that. And it's really exciting because we've started to distill things. So we're really focusing on strategic alignment. How do you align this puzzle of like, okay, how do you take an individual's actions and get them to align with other individuals' actions to be able to achieve an impact? How do you structure that? Then culturally, what is the foundations to allow people to navigate what comes up to be able to do that? And then conflict is like the greatest engine of change and of learning. It's inevitable. So how are we going to meet that and process that? And then how are we going to be able to zoom out and see what a whole organization is so we can diagnose issues and tinker and move forward? So really being able to get the whole thing and then be able to teach people something that took us, a while to put together.
Yeah. And how do we find you if we're interested in learning more about Harmonize Consulting?
Harmonize.work.
There you go. Easy enough. Simon, thank you for being on Opening Pathways today.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Tom. It's fun.
You
Fun to
good,
talk and
good,
reflect.
good. And to my viewers, this is Tom Lenoble. I'll see you next time.